2025 Nobel Peace Prize for anti-Maduro leader Maria Corina Machado. This is, I guess, like the major point here is that it's a disappointment for Trump. He was very upset. And also, it's somewhat of a disappointment for a lot of ball knowers in terms of American foreign policy in general. But it's really interesting that this person got it. She is, I guess, the new oppositional figure that people are leaning on. And much like the old oppositional figure, Juan Guaido, who actually had less support than she does in Venezuela. Just like with Juan Guaido, she has made commitments to both privatization of the refineries and the natural resources that Venezuela has, some of the largest oil reserves on the planet, and also a commitment to Israel. Now, you might be wondering, as I did at the time, why the fuck was Juan Guaido talking about how committed he is to the nation state of Israel? Well, turns out that's just like one of the things that you have to sign off on if you want to become a part of the potential regime change. Guaido was her choice candidate because she couldn't run. She's worse than Guaido. Yeah, you got to kiss the ring, and you got to also take the American posture of Israel first. It's not even a joke. She wrote, okay, here, let's just get right into it. 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado once wrote to Israeli war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu and asked him to help overthrow Venezuela's president Nicolas Maduro. In 2025, you get a Nobel Peace Prize for trying to convince foreign genocidal apartheid state to attack your own country and overthrow its leadership so that Washington can privatize the largest natural oil reserves on earth. She has also said, if we win, we will move the Venezuelan embassy to Jerusalem to support Israel. This definitely is probably one of the primary concerns of the Venezuelan population, I assume. When I think of like a horrifically destabilized economy with the open and deliberate purpose of making the Venezuelan economy scream, which then led to an unprecedented amount of refugees that were escaping the chaos and the economic turmoil, which kind of destabilized the region a little bit. All of the neighboring countries received a fuck ton of Venezuelan refugees. So did the United States of America. Trump offered the Venezuelan refugees temporary protected status, only to then revoke it, which was, again, revoke it in the second term, which was, again, a fucking insane thing to do, by the way, which he is doing currently. But now, the initiative is to, I guess, back this person up to the best of their ability. The timing of this Nobel Peace Prize, New York Times drops a story saying Maduro was willing to sell natural resources to the U.S., but Trump walked away. Now, I don't have a lot of confidence in Maduro's administrative capabilities. I will say it. I'm not the biggest fan of Maduro. I think he's definitely a different figure than Chavez. Having said that, I am a non-interventionist. That's my default position when it comes to the sovereignty of other nations. I think violating it is really fucked up. And the United States of America has already deliberately intervened in the affairs of Venezuela in perpetuity, have destabilized the region quite a bit by doing so. But I guess America wants to not only do that, but do it Iraq style. And I was thinking about this quite a bit, considering the mass displacement that has already taken place. I feel like boots on the ground military warfare, but this time in Latin America, is going to have very negative reverberations, even worse than Iraq, I would say, even more costly than Iraq, I would say. Especially because Iraq was far away, right? Iraq and in Afghanistan and Iraq and the refugee crisis that took place and the Syrian civil war, that actually had a lot of negative impact in both Turkey and all the other surrounding regional nations, but in Europe as well. This would directly impact America in all of the negative ways that they hate. Like, even if we're not going to think about the human toll of direct boots on the ground military warfare, the cost associated with this is incredible. Okay. The human cost for the American side associated with this is also incredible. And then last but not least, the destabilizing effect that this would have is insane. What is your non-intervention line? Obviously not in this situation, but say Israel were to step up their genocide. No, I mean like non-intervention with enemies that we've designated as like foreign adversaries, unless they're just like straight up doing horrific crimes against humanity. But with Israel, we have literally led Israel. I mean, Israel had the ambition, but we just gave them the weapons to do so. So it's a little bit different than like boots on the ground military warfare, right? It's just, we can just tell Israel to fucking, stop, and they will. In any case, the New York Times claims Maduro offered Trump access to Venezuela's oil and mineral wealth to avoid conflict, but the story relies entirely on anonymous U.S. and Venezuelan sources close to the talks and frames Trump as the one rejecting Maduro's concessions. The timing is telling. It comes amid U.S. military escalation in the Caribbean, Chevron's renewed license, and Maria Corina Machado's Nobel Prize. The narrative portrays Maduro as weak and hypocritical, willing to sell out national resources and undermining his anti-imperialist image among supporters and global South allies. This looks like a strategic information op to damage Maduro's legitimacy and box him in politically. I don't know how major of a news story that is, or what kind of shockwaves that'll have. Are people saying like Maduro has never been anti-imperialist? No, he is aesthetically postured in the exact same ways that that Chavez did as well. And no, he is definitely a formative part of that block. So you're wrong. By definition, if you are a enemy of the American state, you automatically slot yourself into that position. So the idea that he's not like anti-imperialist is silly. He absolutely is. He has to be. It's not, like, does he also want to invade Guyana, for example? Yes. Is that at conflict with? Is that at conflict, or is that at odds with a anti-imperialist position? Sure, but the notion that he's not like anti-imperialist is silly. Law of the Venezuelan Empire. Yeah, I mean, he has at times done a little bit of the. He has tried to do the fucking the Vladimir Putin thing. Okay. But once again, as I've said over and over again, like, he is not I don't know who the best leader for Venezuela would be, but I do have a similar position to many in Latin American countries and like in South American leadership have, which is that anybody but the American government. This is ironically something that took place in the aftermath of the elections, the last election cycle in Venezuela, where a lot of the pink tide bloc actually was very critical of Maduro and came out and released statements and said, hold on, this doesn't seem very appropriate, what you're doing here. And then America was like, actually, you're right. Yeah, we don't actually abide by these elections. These are fucking sham. And then every single country in the South American bloc said, okay, never mind. Actually, we were wrong. Venezuela, you're good. America's reputation in South America is so bad for obvious reasons, for very good reasons, that I think its intervention will inevitably lead to a legitimization of Maduro regardless. The Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado, also dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. This recognition of the struggle of all Venezuelans is a boost is a boost to conclude our task to conquer freedom. We are on the threshold of victory, and today, more than ever, we count on President Trump, the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy. I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause. The Nobel Peace Prize awarded Maria Corina Machado after she called for U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, called for sanctions to be imposed on Venezuela, which have killed tens of thousands, expressed support for the Zionist genocide in Gaza, sought backing for mass murder of Netanyahu for military intervention in Venezuela, celebrated the U.S. extrajudicial executions of Venezuelans on boats. I don't know about the last part. That last part actually seems incredible. I don't know if she actually did that. That seems a little bit far-fetched, even by like American crony standards, because I feel like I don't think the Venezuelan population would be on board with it. She's a right winger, but I feel kind of bad for her because of how much she has to suck up to Trump just to keep his attention on Venezuela. It's like when Zelensky had to talk about Charlie fucking Kirk at the United Nations. I think that you are making it seem as though the grand ambition here is like true freedom for the Venezuelan people. I don't agree. I think if someone is an American crony, I suspect that the grand ambition there is to abide by the wishes of empire. She praised the extrajudicial murders on both Fox and Friends and to the Times of London last month. Oh my God. I totally support a strategy, Machado told me. And I've said on behalf of the Venezuelan people that we are very grateful. I think it's the right thing to do. It's courageous. It's visionary. It's visionary to blow up boats off the coastline of Venezuela, completely violating the sovereignty of Venezuela. That's crazy. I think one of the greatest examples of the enshittification of the CIA is this. Okay? Because I feel like you should not be this open. Like you shouldn't be this transparent with how much you're dick riding America. You know what I mean? Like it's just if I'm Venezuelan and I fucking hate Maduro, okay? And I hear the oppositional figure that I'm supposed to have confidence in go, America, thank you for blowing up our fucking boats off of our coastline. I'm going to say, yeah, maybe that's not the best person. I feel like the more people paid attention to Juan Guaido, the more his approval rating wasn't very high to begin with. People said that it was, he was the true leader or whatever, but like he spent a good deal of the constitutional timeline that he had in assuming power, just going to America and sucking up to America, which I think was a mistake. It betrays the notion that this is like a popular uprising, even though there is popular discontent. If that makes sense. Like, I always feel as though these guys are primarily. I always feel as though these guys are like primarily focusing on gaining as much, garnering as much attention from the American State Department and American news and American media that they like kind of lose the plot. Anyway, let's tune into Democracy Now! To get a little bit more insight.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. The Norwegian Nobel Committee announced today the recipient of the 2025
I feel fucking
Nobel
bad,
Peace
dude.
Prize.
I just like we have played a big role in fucking up Venezuela for a very long time, and I do think that like I'm not a fan of Maduro, but I also am conflicted to even mention that in a time like this, because like America is very clearly moving forward with direct intervention beyond like the sanctions regime, beyond like crippling the Venezuelan economy, beyond other forms of interference. And it feels as though this is like the next step in the plan. And it feels, I mean, it looks terrible. The outlook is grim.
The Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 goes to a brave and committed champion of peace, to a woman who keeps the flame of democracy burning amidst a growing darkness. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado. She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. Maria Corina Machado meets all the three criteria stated in Alfred Nobel's will for the selection of a peace prize. She has brought her country's opposition together. She has never wavered in resisting the militarization of Venezuelan society. She has been steadfast in her support for a peaceful transition to democracy.
Maria Corina Machado is a longtime U.S. ally nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize last year by a number of Florida Republicans, including then-Senator Marco Rubio, who's now President Trump's Secretary of State. In 2002, Machado supported the coup that briefly overthrew Venezuela's democratically elected president, Hugo Chavez. Machado attempted to run for president against incumbent Nicolas Maduro in the 2024 race, but was barred from running after the government accused her of corruption and cited her support for U.S. sanctions against Venezuela. Edmundo Gonzalez ran in her place. Venezuela's National Electoral Council declared Maduro the winner, but the opposition claimed Gonzalez won. Machado has vowed to...
I want to mention something here, by the way, for people that would say, like, oh, that's crazy, I can't believe like, she was barred from running. Imagine a world where there is someone who is like directly, openly connected to China. Like, there is no speculation here, right? Like, we understand that she is working with America directly, right, for intervention in the country. Imagine a world where there was someone who was directly working with China, running for office in America. I don't think that they would just be barred from running. I think they would be imprisoned, possibly even get the death penalty for treason. So just to help you understand a little bit more, like, the dynamic. Because we always look at this stuff and we say, oh, this is, she just wanted to, what do you call it? These people are simply looking for more democracy, to expand democracy. And then Maduro hates them and then will jail them or whatever. And Maduro is despotic in many ways, for sure. I would go so far as to say he is worse on like regular protesters, like regular Venezuelans, than he is on his opposition. And this was not dissimilar to the way that Chavez operated as well, where they would just like let the opposition roam free and do whatever the fuck they want, and and continue to gum up the works to the best of their ability, instead of like straight up imprisoning them. Which is what is expected in a situation like this, which is what is expected of like a country that's being called like this incredibly violent dictatorship. Meanwhile, I think like the political repression of people mobilizing in Venezuela is treated worse than the opposition figureheads.
Privatized Venezuela's state oil industry. She's also praised right-wing Latin American leaders, including Argentina's Javier Milei. The Nobel Committee's selection of Machado comes at a time of heightened tension between the U.S. and Venezuela, as the U.S. continually bombs boats off the coast of Venezuela, while threatening to launch a larger military operation. On Thursday, the Venezuelan government requested an emergency session of the UN Security Council to discuss the U.S. military actions. For more, we go to Greg Grandin, Yale University history professor, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, whose latest book is America, A New History of the New World. Professor Grandin, welcome back to Democracy Now! Your response to this Nobel Prize announcement.
Well, thanks for having me.
Do you think China and Russia will support Venezuela? China and Russia has been supporting Venezuela. Also, ironically enough, Turkey, playing both sides and always coming out on top, is also a supporter of Maduro as well, in spite of the role that they play in the region, in the Middle East. So it's another interesting element. This is I mean, I guess it's the Nobel Peace Prize. It's entirely dependent on how much you think it's worth anything. But the reason why people are skeptical of this is because they see this as like giving America more of a just cause for military intervention in Venezuela.
As we wrap up, if you can talk about what is happening right now and the rage President Trump, interestingly, will feel at not getting the Nobel Peace Prize himself, as he has very explicitly demanded. And
yeah, it's like funny because as Greg said, this is like the next best thing that they could have done for Marco Rubio. But I don't think Trump gives a shit because he really wanted it, it seems. Like he wanted it and he wanted it bad. I don't think he cares that this plays a role in like America's strategic interest in dominating Venezuela. And I don't even think Trump wants it for the prestige. I think he wants it just because Obama got one.